Testing. All right. Well, thank you, chat. How many of you guys are still with me? How many of you guys didn't bail with me as I was going through this? Dooba 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 doobie. That was funny because I was just talking. Hey, 18 people still stuck with us. All right. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start over because I've been talking without a microphone this whole time. Cue the music, right? Welcome to this episode of NIMSY Live, where we talk about the latest and the greatest. And this isn't NIMSY Live. Welcome to the latest installments of Workshop Wednesdays. And Workshop Wednesdays are an awesome new series that we have here at NIMSY Insights, where every Wednesday we're trying to bring you the latest and greatest. What do we talk about here on Workshop Wednesdays? We talk about all sorts of stuff. We cover localization. We cover localization project management training, localization QA training, sales process training, translation resources, and much more. Explore our ever-expanding selection of workshops that are available to you, which I will bring up on screen here right now. I already showed you, but I'm going to bring it up here again. Got all sorts of workshops available out there, a whole library of them. So if any of this stuff looks interesting to you, then please reach out, info@nimsy.com. Talk to us about setting up a custom or a private workshop just for you guys. If you're not already subscribed to NIMSY Insights, make sure to do that now. Here on LinkedIn, you can hit that follow button, and you'll be one of the first people to know when we go live with new Workshop Wednesdays, which are free to the public, when we publish new research, and all of that stuff. Lots of options out there. Lots of options out there for NIMSY learning. And if you're out there and you're a manager and you're wondering, how am I going to be providing professional development for my team, as every manager, frankly, should be providing professional development for their team, but you're busy, we can help with that. So reach out, info@nimsy.com. I'm going to skip the introduction to the platform because I already went through that, even though you didn't hear me, but we are here on LinkedIn. Engage in the comments section. Check out that networking tab. If you're watching the recording of this afterwards, then you can still engage with folks on that networking tab, which is cool. This is one of the few times where you can actually talk to people that you're not connected to on LinkedIn. I don't know if you knew that in LinkedIn events. So if you want to make some new friends that you're not even connected to yet on LinkedIn, then go ahead and do that. For those of you that don't know me, I am Tucker Johnson. Like I said, I'm one of the co-founders here at NIMSY Insights, co-owner, multilingual media. I teach some courses, adjunct professor, all of that stuff. But really, more interesting than me is the team of 50-plus professionals and consultants that we have here at NIMSY Insights. And I can't do these workshops without giving a big shout-out to them, because I don't want to give you the impression that I'm the guy with the plan and the knowledge. I'm leaning or standing on the shoulders of some really, really experienced people here at NIMSY Insights. And also, because you didn't hear it earlier, I wanted to give a shout out to, and just to say, NIMSY is not the only resources out here when it comes to geocultural and geopolitical type stuff. If you have the March 2022 issue of Multilingual Magazine, this one has Ceci on it. Hi, Ceci. But there's different covers, so don't be confused, because different folks. It's the Women's Month issue, so we profiled different influential women in localization, one of whom was this lady by the name of Kate Edwards, who's an awesome cosplayer. Go check out her Instagram. And she owns a company called Geography, which is, it's like the company out there. I can't talk about this subject without, and she was already in the comments saying, hey, this is like what I talk about. I'm like, yeah, but you talk about it better than me. So shout out to Kate Edwards. Go check out Geography after this if this is a topic that you really like. This is an interactive session. Please ask questions, engage, share your stories in the comments as well. In this lesson, in this Workshop Wednesday today, we're going to hopefully be gaining an appreciation for the importance of considering geopolitical and geocultural risk for global businesses. We're going to learn how to identify the main types of risk. out there, and we're going to better understand how to provide cultural leadership to your company and customers. We're going to be going through 5 lessons. The first one's kind of an introduction. What is the need for political and cultural awareness? Followed by kind of a deep dive into these 5 categories that are not, like defined categories. These are my categories or our categories here at NIMSY that we like to put things into, which are market intelligence, language intelligence, political intelligence, and cultural intelligence. So, without further ado, because I've already wasted enough of your time with my microphone off, let's dive right into it, shall we? Starting with lesson number 1, the importance of geocultural and geopolitical factors for localization. And this is going to be important for pretty much anybody. I can't remember if I said this mic on or mic off already, but whether you're on the vendor side or the client side, we are, in our industry, the localization industry, we are, or at least we should be, thought leaders on the global stage. Most people don't understand the complexities of language, the complexities of culture, the complexities of just operating in international markets and trying to cater to a diverse user base. So if you're on the client side and you're working in a localization department, your C-suite, your other teams, your internal stakeholders rely upon you for that thought leadership. If you're on the vendor side, your client relies upon you, because when that client-side globalization director gets a email or a phone call from the C-suite saying, hey, what went wrong in China? Well, chances are you're going to be getting a phone call or an email pretty soon, too. So this is for everybody out there, including those who just like to geek out on this kind of stuff. It's a lot of fascinating stuff that we talk about. So in this first lesson, we'll talk about geopolitical and geocultural considerations. What do I mean by that? What are some goals that we need to define? What are some of the factors out there that are creating risk? That's why we're talking about it. We're talking about risk. And what kind of risk? The risk of people getting offended, the risk of upsetting the wrong people, whether those are your customers or the governments where your customers are. We'll sum it up with the 4 pillars of awareness and provide a brief intro into the 4 types of geocultural and geopolitical advisory that are available out there. And before I go too much further, I'm checking those comments. Awesome, you can't hear me. See, that's what happened. That's why I need to check those comments. If I don't check the comments, I end up talking to myself for a long time. Great. So, I would love, maybe I should ask Kate Edwards, I would love to have a clear, defined term, so I don't have to say geopolitical and geocultural awareness. That's a mouthful each time. But I keep saying it because there's a difference, at least in my mind, between these geopolitical issues and the geocultural issues. So what am I talking about when I'm talking about geopolitics? I'm talking about economic factors. I'm talking about politics, of course, borders. Borders are a big one. If you have maps or flags, first of all, don't have flags. Just stay away from flags. We'll get into that. But if you have maps or flags, it's something that you need to be aware of. What are the latest laws and regulations? What are the treaties, and what are the latest sanctions? We need to be aware, certainly, of sanctions in this world that we live in right now. Where are we allowed to do business, and who are we allowed to do business with in those markets? And just general regulations and regulatory bodies out there. So that's geopolitics. Geocultural challenges, or geoculture, I should say, these are things like language access and justice, racial tensions, religion, cultural pride, different holidays and celebrations, violence and perceptions of violence. What do I mean by violence? Well, we'll get into that. Different perceptions and attitudes towards sexuality, gender issues, and these are the things, at least in my news feed, these are the things that I see a lot about, and that's probably just because of the algorithm knows that I'm interested in these type of things. Now, I think a good way, if that's too much to remember, a good way to think of this is geopolitics and geopolitical issues. Think of it as what's legal and allowed by government and regulatory bodies. What's legal in one market might not be legal in other markets, right? For geocultural issues, you can think of it as what's socially acceptable in one market might not be socially acceptable in other markets. Now, there's going to be some overlap between these things. There's certainly going to be some overlap because a lot of times what is illegal is also not socially acceptable and vice versa. So these aren't hard and fast categories. Things can fall into both of these different categories, but still I think it's useful to draw a distinction so we see what we're talking about here. What are some goals here? Why are we talking about geocultural and geopolitical awareness? Why is it important to have these things? And it's important to have these things for many different reasons. We're going to go through some right now, short-term and long-term goals. In the short term, you need to be able to make informed decisions. We make decisions, especially on the client side where you're responsible for setting strategy for your organization. You need to be able to set the strategic and the tactical direction for your organization. Like I said, you are a thought leader. You are a thought leader, so you need to be armed with the knowledge and information in order to be that thought leader. We want to be able to maximize our brand sentiment. You know, what's important to people in some markets might not be important to people in other markets, so we need to have that awareness, what's going on with that, and minimize risk. Minimize risk, and specifically in the area of public sentiment and legal and regulatory powers, as we were talking about in the previous slide. And long term, if we're playing the long game here, we want to be able to stay on top of this changing world. Culture is changing every single day, or at least every single month, I would say, right now. And hey, here's another thing too. Like if that iPad, I've got the iPad babysitter for the next hour in the background. If you guys can hear that and if it's annoying, let me know in the comments. All right? Otherwise, I'm going to ignore the adorable little princess in the background. Where was I? Staying ahead of a changing world, deeply understand emerging customer trends. So, what are those customer trends? It takes diligence and it takes discipline to be able to stay on top of these things. What are some of the factors driving political risk right now? There are many. There are many. Increasing globalization, that's been around for a while, increasing cultural sensitivity. And no, I don't have statistics for each of these that I'm going to be presenting to you. So if you disagree with any of these, then that's a conversation. Like, let's have that. Leave a comment. Let me know your opinions. But this is just kind of what I've found. And just a little bit of background, too, which I probably should have covered in the introduction, which is that here at NIMSY Insights, we run a bi-weekly private group just to talk about this subject. So we meet with leaders in the localization industry every 2 weeks, and we provide a curated list of things that we're talking about. And that's going to be where some of the examples are coming from here. So, increasing globalization, increasing cultural sensitivity, tribalism and defensiveness, increasing focus on quote-unquote representation, increased focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Internet and social media is making it a heck of a lot easier these days for customers to take offense at things and to make that offense heard. And an offended customer is potentially an ex-customer. So we need to be aware of that. And lastly, increased tensions in international relationships between governments. I'm sure you can fill in the blanks with some examples happening in the world right now, especially in Europe, that are having a very meaningful effect on localization strategies right now. And the rise of quote-unquote woke culture, whatever that means to you. I'm not going to define it today because I don't feel like stepping in that pile. Why are people offended? Oh, this is types of geopolitical and geocultural work. So different types of research, and I want to cover some specific research that we've covered here at NIMSY. So what can we do, essentially? The question here is, what can we as localization professionals do in to combat this, to stay on top of this, to maintain awareness, right? And I keep calling it awareness because this isn't really something like, oh, there's a project and we're going to do this thing and it's done, it's checked. It's an ongoing awareness. It's more of a mindset than a process, I would say. But once you